Are you sure?
Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never ask a bride why she's getting married. Don't wear a skirt on a windy day. Deodorant is not a shower. Don't sniff chili flakes. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
All the counting is over and a new government will be in place very soon. Indications are that it will be sworn in on the 8th, that is this Saturday. In any case, once we know it formally, we will all know about this. You might have seen pictures on your TV screens today of Prime Minister Modi, BJP President JP Nadda, also their key coalition partners, that is Chandrababu Naidu, also Nitish Kumar going to meet the Rashtrapati and making their case, staking their claim. Nevertheless, there will be a government very soon. As always, it's a peaceful, stable, democratic transition in India. However, it's a transition in a way within the same government, except that a party which was ruling with a majority with some coalition allies or dwindling coalition allies for 2 terms, it has now come back as the core, as a very strong core in a real coalition. So this is an unusual experience for India. India has had different kinds of coalitions. India has had coalitions where the leading party had no more than about 40 MPs. That was Chandrasekhar as Prime Minister in 1991. India has also had a coalition where the ruling party had very few people, but somebody, a much bigger party from outside, supported it. That was Deve Gowda and Indra Kumar Gujral. VP Singh before that, party had numbers, but very large parties were supporting it from outside. That is the BJP and the left. And before that, that unique experiment in Indian political history of Chaudhry Charan Singh becoming Prime Minister for almost no time. In fact, the only Prime Minister who failed even to face his vote of confidence, because the Congress party, Mrs. Gandhi's Congress party that was supporting it from outside, withdrew its support. So he never sought his vote of confidence. So India has had many kinds of coalitions. In that process, what we have right now is a very new kind of coalition, because we've had 2 successive coalitions, that is UPA 1 and then UPA 2. They were similar in the sense that the same core member of the coalition continued on as the core in the next coalition. Mr. Vajpayee had 3 coalitions, one for 13 days, one for about a year, that was defeated by 1 vote in 1999, and then the other one, a third one, which lasted almost 5 years. In each one, while these were 3 different coalitions, the core party was the same. This is the first Indian experience, however, of a ruling party with a majority now transforming into or morphing into a coalition with a ruling party with a very solid majority becoming the core of a coalition, a minority presence in parliament, but a core in the coalition with a very strong number of seats. Before this, the largest coalition party that we've seen, largest coalition core that we've seen was the UPA in 2009 with 206 seats. I am not calling Narasimha Rao's government in 1991 as a coalition government. He got 232 seats in a house of 523 at that point. But that was not a coalition government. He just ran a minority government. This is a new experience for Indian democracy. New experience in the sense that a majority has now lost its majority. It's no longer a majority, but it is still a strong core, and around it, a new coalition is being built. Little bit of opinion of mine. In fact, a transition like this, which ironically took place, our counting took place on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre in China, on the 35th anniversary. That tells you the difference between the 2 countries, the 2 biggest, the most populous countries in the world. And we have to feel very proud of it. That's the reason I see no harm in lapsing into a little bit of opinion here. And this is something which I would see, I've seen some more rating agencies have retained India's rating as if it's a big favor. No, it's not a favor. In fact, when you see a transition like this in India, you should upgrade India's rating. So India deserves a higher rating by the rating agencies only because of its political stability and its ability to bring about political transition any which way, totally peacefully. And when that happens, what comes implicit with this is a large-scale continuity of policies and approaches. And again, the Indian experience tells you that there is always continuity. What changes is pace. The pace in some areas increases, the pace in some areas decreases. That's how it happens in a democracy. But basic direction of nothing changes. It's never happened in India, especially on the economy, foreign policy, etc. Of course, sometimes when parties come with brute majorities, they also have ideological issues and they bring in their ideological agendas on the table. That is not the case just now. This is going to be a genuine coalition government because the BJP is not short by 5 or 10. BJP is short by 30, 35 seats in this Lok Sabha. That said, I will give you today's Cut the Clutter, today's analysis in two heads. And the two heads are, number one, things that will not stop with the formation of a coalition, or things that will not stop with a majority BJP government of 2 terms, 10 years, morphing into or being reduced, if you want to use that term, if you prefer that term, of being reduced to a coalition. So one, things that will not stop. Second, things that will most likely stop. Third, things that will probably change, right? They will not stop, but they will probably change. Fourth is something which I'm keeping back for today. Fourth is the likely shape of the new cabinet, where we will draw our wisdom from our experience and our learnings from coalitions that we've seen so far. That I will hold on to. I will wait for a little more clarity by tomorrow morning and maybe save it for tomorrow's episode of Cut the Clutter. So first of all now, things that will not stop. That's a very short list, but don't be disappointed by the fact that it's a very short list. In fact, the positive thing is that it's a very short list because it's a very broad list. So what will not stop? First of all, the following will not stop, reverse or slow down. That is all of India's foreign policy. Nothing will stop, reverse or slow down. Everything move in the same direction. India's view on America, India's view on China, Russia, the developed world, Pakistan, nothing will change. It will be exactly the same as before. In fact, even the language India uses in its discourse and discussions with the world will remain just the same. The same metaphors will be used. Don't worry about this. And there will also be total harmony on the communication that's going out on foreign and strategic policy. That's one. Number two, defense, nothing will change. So all that you've seen so far, the effort at Make in India, the effort also at buying more equipment for the defense forces, modernization, also looking at some of the costs, say for example, pension costs. There is some little twist there that I will come to later, but I don't see anything changing in the area of defense. So first, foreign affairs, then defense. So all the Indian companies which are now beginning to manufacture hardware in India, hoping to sell to the Indian forces and also export, all of that will continue. Please have no concerns that that's going to reverse or change. Number three, I know all of you want to know about finance, economic policies. Once again, they will, first of all, you are guaranteed to have broad continuity, guaranteed to have broad continuity. And in fact, you can be quite sure that even in detail, there will not be that much change. So what is it that might change? Because after all, it's a coalition government. There will be demands from some states for more funds, both Bihar and Andhra, without which this coalition cannot survive. The chief ministers of both states have been demanding chief minister of one state, the chief minister to be of the other state, who was chief minister in the past, and it was the same demand. They'd be demanding special status for their states, and there is a justification there because both states were split. The most productive, smaller parts of these states were taken out. That is Jharkhand in the case of Bihar, and also Telangana in the case of Andhra Pradesh. So the original larger states believe, quite rightly, that they have access now to fewer resources or revenues. So they have to be compensated. Now that can has been kicked down the road by various governments for a long time. In fact, it was for one of those reasons, among other reasons, that Chandrababu Naidu, who was a member of the NDA earlier of Modi 1, he had pulled his 2 ministers out of that government. And those demands will come in. So there will be demand for some money, but those are things that happen in the everyday business of running a government in a large country like India. Beyond that, I don't see any change in India's financial policies. Nothing, no change, no diminishing of any pace of reform. If anything, we might see a little more tax stability. And if people have been worrying about more radical tax ideas coming in, probably those will now take time. So fundamentally nothing will change with financial and economic policy. And finally, internal security. Once again, internal security on the view on Kashmir, anything that might happen in Punjab, God forbid, the Northeast, the Naxals, none of that's going to change. So internal security view is going to be constantly moving in the same direction. There's going to be no shift, no change in direction. What will change in that area, or what could change in that area, is the way the agencies are used. The agencies linked to the home ministries are used, because that is where coalition partners might have their concerns. We are not sure, because so far Nitish Kumar was a coalition partner and he made no noise about this. But unlike in the past, now Nitish will have leverage and Chandrababu Naidu will have leverage. So we'll see how that goes, because if that goes on, then these coalition partners may also start worrying about themselves in the course of time, that look, if I threaten to pull out, because my leverage is that I can pull out. If I threaten to pull out, will the same forces be unleashed after me? So there will be some restraint there, or let me restrain myself and say, there might be some restraint there. Otherwise, you are guaranteed continuity on internal security as well. Then, what else will continue unchanged? There will be no change. Infrastructure building, there will be no change, because all constituents of the coalition are fully committed to the building of infrastructure. That is not going to change. There might be some demands about some trains here, some trains there, right? With Bihar, that's always an issue. But beyond that, not very much. Or maybe Andhra would demand more investments or more freedom to develop ports on their coastline, because the coastline is Andhra's asset. There is Vizag, the big port. There are a few more ports on that coastline, but that coastline can have more ports and more infrastructure development. So maybe those demands will be there, but those will all be positive. I don't see any infrastructure building stopping or being impeded or slowing down. Then expansion of higher education will continue. It will not stop. If anything, it might be accelerated. Digital public infrastructure, UPI, etc., and all the areas in which you use digital technologies. Now you have Chandrababu Naidu also in the mix. It's only going to get accelerated. No question of any of that stopping. That is one of the biggest reforms in India, the digitization of India. That, if there can be any change, it will be a change in the pace, and pace will become, in fact, faster. Welfare programs, no reversal. Some may be devolved to the states, however. Some may be devolved to the states, because these chief ministers will now say that if food grain bags are being distributed to voters in my state, why should they carry only the Prime Minister's picture? Or why should they carry the Prime Minister's picture? You might see a compromise. All right, they can carry your picture also. But then that is also a demand that other chief ministers will have. So those are all minor changes. And I would say those are changes more of politics, but those are not changes of substance. So this will also welfare programs, things like medical insurance, the promise that BJP has made for medical insurance or medical subsidy or medical care for older people, things like that will not be reversed. That will carry on. Now I will read out to you the things that will stop. But you know what? What will remain unchanged is a short list, because these are really broad issues. And these are the broad issues that matter as far as the quality of governance, as far as India's growth, the delivery of India's services to citizens, also the facilitation of investment and development is concerned. These are the ones that matter. Also India's security, India's positioning in the world, strategic policy, all of that, all of these are broad facts. These will not change. So look at almost 90-95%, I would say even greater continuity in policies. And that's why I sometimes get really surprised by the insecurity that I see, for example, on the markets. Looks like now that's calming down, which is a good thing. That said, let me read out the list of things that I think will change. So first of all, a few things that we think will definitely change. Number one, the idea of one nation, one election. That is now over. That is now over because, first of all, the BJP does not even have a majority. So forget having 2/3 in parliament, right? That is not going to happen. So one nation, one election, all the hard work that the committee under our former president Ramnath Kovind did, that will now wait for another day, maybe a day after 2029, maybe much later, maybe not in the foreseeable future, even beyond 2029. But in any case, in this term of this government, one nation, one election is over. Because can you imagine 2 years from now, if you say I have one nation, one election, and Chandrababu Naidu also has to give up his government of 5 years? It's not going to happen. Nobody will do it. BJP will not risk an early election, say in Uttar Pradesh, right? It's not going to happen. So this is now over. Definitely, one nation, one election is dead in the water. Number two, universal civil code. Now, first of all, it was difficult to see how a central law could bring about a universal civil code in India, because so many things in personal laws devolve to the states and there are so many other complexities. However, now, with the BJP not even having a majority and other parties having different views, universal civil code, you will not even hear about it now. Maybe until the next election campaign, national election campaign, when the BJP starts mentioning this as their promise in case they get a majority. Give me a large majority, I will bring universal civil code. You can forget about it in this term of this BJP-led coalition. Number three, common electoral rolls. Now, this is linked to one nation, one election. Because although I would say this is a bit of a reformist idea, and I'd be disappointed if it doesn't happen, but the idea that you have one set of electoral rolls for Lok Sabha, state assemblies, municipal elections, maybe even panchayat elections, although I haven't seen that mentioned, it will make the governance or the conduct of elections very smooth. If you have common electoral rolls, will it definitely stop? It will most likely stop because the incentive of one nation, one election is gone. However, if this continues, I'll be quite happy. And I'm not saying it definitely will not happen in this 5 years, but looks like it's quite unlikely. Then, fifth thing that we know will not happen now is delimitation of constituencies. That was supposed to happen after 2026, that India's political map was to be reset in terms of constituencies, reflecting the new reality of population in the states. Now, that's a very tricky subject, because what's happened over the decades is that many of the progressive states have controlled their population growth. Kerala, Tamil Nadu to begin with, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Andhra, now Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir, increasingly Maharashtra, West Bengal, very pleasantly surprising. These states have really controlled their population growth and have improved also their, in different, to different extents, improved their social indicators as well. Whereas states with large population masses, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, they've been having very heavy population growth. At this point as we speak, the population growth or the total fertility rate in Bihar is twice as much, almost twice as much as that of Tamil Nadu, Kerala and even Punjab. Now, if a new delimitation reflects the reality of these populations, then relatively the share of the progressive states in the new parliament will go down in proportion of their population, and they see this as punishment for being good citizens. And that is why, given how tricky this idea is, governments in the past have been putting this off. In 2001, Vajpayee government had made a constitutional amendment, which everybody helped along with, to kick this can down to 2026. The decision then was, under this amendment, that a delimitation will take place based on the first census that's carried out after 2026. As we stand, the BJP government, the two terms of the BJP government have not been enthusiastic about the census. So our last census was held in 2011. 2021 census was given the go-by. Maybe at that point the excuse was the second wave of COVID, but uske baad mein 22, 23, 24, 22, 23, 24 have come and there is no talk of the census. So the idea that BJP will come back with a huge majority, 330, 40 of its own, 400 par, and then will quickly hold a census and then carry out a delimitation of constituencies using that brute power, that is now over. In fact, I will hope, and this is a hope and expectation, and this is a bit of opinion as well, that India needs a census ASAP, because a country like India, since 1881, the only time India missed a census was 1941, because that was during the Second World War. Otherwise, India has never missed a census, 1891, 2001, 2011, so on and so forth. But it missed one in 2021, and it's a shame that we haven't held a census since then, and we haven't even unveiled a census plan. So I'm hoping that a census will happen, but definitely a delimitation now will not happen, because that will also require the kind of majorities in parliament which are simply not available now. So this is not going to happen. A delimitation is not going to happen. The next thing that's not going to happen, you can say it's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what your view is on this. That is the women's implementation of the Women's Reservation Bill. The Women's Reservation Bill was passed in the last days of the last parliament, right, with great fanfare. However, this bill has to come into being in 2029, after 2029, after the delimitation. So if delimitation doesn't happen, how will the Women's Reservation Bill be implemented? It is not going to happen. Next, the idea was that the center will now issue a list of OBCs, because different states have their own definition of OBCs. The Baniyas, for example, in Bihar are OBCs, and some categories of Baniyas may be OBCs in other states. So the idea was to centralize this and issue one list notified by the president for the whole country. Most unlikely. I will not say it will definitely not happen. I can say I'm quite sure, almost sure this will definitely not happen. But we haven't heard yet from Nitish and Chandrababu Naidu. But I would say the chances of a central list of OBCs being issued are almost as close to insignificant now. And this will be part of a larger pattern that centralization, in my view, over-centralization of governance in India will now stop. In fact, some of them may be reversed, which in my view will be a reform. Next thing that will go on the back seat is this whole BJP push for Kashi and Mathura, for either removing the mosques there and shifting the mosques there, mosque in one place, Eidgah in the other, or doing other polarizing things there. Some rhetoric may go on from the BJP, but it's impossible that a coalition like this can make any movement in that direction. What's happening in the courts will go on, and I suppose the BJP will wait for another day when they have a majority of their own, or a large enough majority of their own. Right now, this is in cold storage, except in the courts. Then, common regulator for UGC, AICTE, and other such technical bodies. Is that going to happen? I'm now moving to categories. where I'm not 100% sure that this will not happen. But again, this is an area which will be definitely reviewed and maybe will not happen. Next is an idea which I am not sure has ever been stated by the BJP as a definite objective, but it's been discussed enough informally, and it's something that we know that the BJP leadership really likes. That is a common corruption fighter. In a way, creating a super agency and super agency boss who oversees all the agencies and uses them all to fight corruption. Now, fighting corruption can mean many things, as we know, and it's very politically loaded. I don't see any possibility that under this coalition government, such a common corruption fighter is going to come into being. We can forget that. Now I'm also coming to some things, the third category, some things which will change or slow down. I'm not sure if they will stop. And some, I would say, I wish they would not stop, but which may slow down and there will be a review. So I mentioned to you just now the common regulator for UGC, AICTE, etc., etc. That will have a review, that could have a review and maybe will slow down or maybe will not happen in the near future. Then Agniveer scheme. Agniveer scheme most certainly will have a review. I am hoping, yes, it needs a review. It's a radical new scheme and it was launched with insufficient discussion or insufficient sensitizing of public opinion. So that needs to be done now and it needs reform. So I will be hoping that the reform means taking 4 years to 7 years, creating more avenues for absorption of those who finish this, because the twin idea of controlling defense pension budgets, which had gone ahead of defense salary budgets, and the gap was increasing further. So twin objectives of controlling defense pension budgets or pension bill and keeping the armed forces young. The armed forces today have an average age of 33. It's too old. So for those twin objectives to be met, India needs an Agniveer kind of scheme. Should it be 4 years or 7 years as the other rank service used to be in the 60s? Those are matters of debate. I am hoping, the hope is that this will not be scrapped. Agniveer scheme will not be scrapped. It will be reformed. It will be improved with a consensus, discussed, debated, and it will be carried on. However, I cannot rule out, because the BJP now, particularly given the losses they've suffered, say, in Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana, they've been wiped out in Punjab, where they thought they will do very well after having gotten rid of their link with the Akalis. They will be among the scapegoats, will also be the Agniveer scheme. So there will be pressure within the BJP also to junk it. I hope it's not junk and it's modified, but there will be something there. The next one, the misuse of Raj Bhavans, misuse of governors. I don't think it will be as freely done as was the case in the past, because these new chief ministers will also bring in that sensitivity. Again, you will say, but Nitish Kumar was always a member of the coalition NDA. He never complained about it. But remember, then he had no leverage. Today he may or may not do it, but conceivably he can pull out support. So either of the two coalition partners now can threaten to pull out support if something unacceptable to them is being done. And I think Raj Bhavan misuse, the rampant Raj Bhavan misuse that we've seen in the past, that will not happen now. Then, and just as the misuse of Raj Bhavans will come down greatly, also this buying and selling of MLAs, Operation Kamals in this state or that, pulling down state governments, Khareed Farokht as it's called in Hindi and Urdu, right? Horse trading, that will come down greatly, because these regional parties have been there, done that, they've been on this side and that side, and they will worry that what's being done to others tomorrow could be done to them. Tomorrow, a powerful core party could carry out an Operation Kamal even on a coalition partner. So that is something that they'll be very careful about, and I don't see a lot of that happening. Then the business of passing other laws in the guise of money bills. Chances are that will not be so easy. I'm not saying it's impossible, because people can get together and do a bad thing. And the convenience with which it has been done so far will not happen. So I've listed for you: 1, areas where nothing will stop; 2, areas where everything will stop; And third, areas where either there will be a slowdown or a review or a modification. And finally, while I told you that I will talk about the likely cabinet, etc., maybe tomorrow, maybe in the next edition, once we have clarity, the one thing I will state today, and that will not happen, what you will not see, in fact, I'll be surprised out of my wits if such a thing happens and be very disappointed, but I'm quite sure it will not happen. One thing you will not see is a change in Cabinet Committee on Security in terms of who has the cabinet members there. I'm not saying the same ministers will continue, but all the ministers in the Cabinet Committee on Security will be from the BJP. In fact, ever since we started having genuine coalitions with the national party at the core, beginning with Mr. Vajpayee and then to NDA 2, Modi 2, which was also technically a coalition because it had other partners, CCS members have always been from the core party except Mr. Vajpayee's coalitions, which had George Fernandez, Samta/Socialist, as Minister of Defense. But since then, the UPA, even though it had 145, only 145 MPs in UPA 1, 206 in UPA 2, Mr. Vajpayee had 182 in his two coalitions of 1998 and 1999. The UPA onwards, no coalition has had an outsider in the Cabinet Committee on Security, and that you can be quite sure is going to continue in the new arrangement as well. But in this area at least, I do not expect a surprise at all, and that is what guarantees the first list we gave to you, where we said we see no policy changes of any significance. Remember what the CCS is? Defense, Foreign Affairs, Finance and Home. Those four key ministries and of course the Prime Minister.